There are a lot of questions out there about what constitutes a food-safe finish for products that are going to be used in the kitchen. And what I've discovered is, after a lot of research, I found that the FDA says that almost any finish is safe for use in a kitchen after it's fully cured, that being about 30 days for most finishes. For things like shellac, 4 days, enough for the alcohol to evaporate. For boiled linseed oil, which is really linseed oil that has chemical additives to speed up the drying process, that might take a little bit longer, but what the FDA kind of says on that is that such a small amount is used. It's not like you're drinking the boiled linseed oil directly. It's going to be absorbed into the wood. So again, a curing time of about a week or so is fine for that. Of course, you'll want to still allow your product to sit for about 30 days before you fully use it if you want to be actually very safe about that. For my finish, what I've chosen to use is a solution of 1/3 boiled linseed oil to 2 parts of shellac. I use a 1.5 pound cut of shellac, and I mix those together. The shellac is going to make the boiled linseed oil a little bit harder and tougher. It's going to give some protection to the surface, and if you want, finishing it off with a coating of beeswax would be great. I don't have any beeswax on hand, so I'm going to just use my solution. I've already cleaned the boards with alcohol and given a final sanding with 320 grit sandpaper just to remove any roughness. And now I'm going to do the finishing. And you'll see how this grain just really pops. I want just a light film of finish, not anything really thick. So I'll clean everything off afterwards. And for my painter's points, I have a really simple solution. I've been using these for years. It's just some screws in a piece of wood, and I've dulled the points so that it's not really sharp. It won't damage my surface. And you use a little bit of a circular motion to work the linseed oil into the surface. And my solution tends to separate out pretty quickly. You can see the shellac, the alcohol rising to the top. So I need to keep it well shook up as I take some of the solution. And once over on the front again, just to make sure anything I've laid down on the surface is good. I'll give it about 4 coats of this, so 4 days, let it dry a day between each coat, and then we'll be good to go. Up here in the top, I'll be putting a leather lace through to be able to hang it up. I just love the way this grain comes out. It's not working. So it looks like my solution of shellac and linseed oil really was kind of a fail.
Yeah, it may be the finish that caused it to stick a little bit more, and we saw that there was some damage to the finish on the peel from the stone. So the heat made that shellac bubble up or something.
But fortunately, shellac is really forgiving, so we can just kind of buff it off and it's not a problem. It just restores it right back and we can do whatever we want with the surface now.
So we think we'll probably change to just a simple oil.
Well, that'll at least bring out the pretty grains of the woods. There's a couple of different choices. Like I discussed earlier, we could use pure linseed oil that's food safe because boiled linseed oil that we have on hand has to cure.
Or mineral oil, which is food safe and readily available at a drugstore, pharmacy. And this is probably what we'll try next.
I think we're probably going to have to be applying that almost every time, but it's cheap enough, and that's just if we want to maintain the look of the wood. But yeah, mineral oil is a good choice. So what I said at the beginning about all the food safe finishes, that still really stands. But if it's going to be a finish that's going to be subjected to the heat of the oven, you probably don't want shellac in it or anything that's going to harden. I think you want to stick with the oil finishes or none at all.
So all those other finishes would be okay, like on a cutting board?
Sure, they'd be great for a cutting board. Although even for a cutting board, you don't want to go with a super hard finish that'll flake off. I mean, you can use a poly on a cutting board if you wanted to, but let it cure for 30 days, but that's just completely wrong because it'll cut up over time, and this is something that can be repaired.
So we're going to have to try again with another pizza because it's Friday night again.
I love Fridays.